be.
Yeah, I think Brad Stevens, though, he can tweak the system enough for. I mean, we've seen him do that before, right? But I think where you get the extra points is continuing to see Tatum attack the rim, get to the free throw line. I mean,
they should not do that at all to start this game.
That's how Durant became such a big scorer. I mean, obviously he progressed into a superstar, but before making that gigantic leap, or the last leap he made in his career, it was getting to the free throw line. And I think Tatum's going to make that leap. I think that's realistic this year because he has to. There's no Kemba Walker. Jaylen Brown's going to have to figure things out. I think he will, but I don't know exactly to what extent. I don't know if the Celtics can get to the NBA Finals or Eastern Conference Finals, for that matter, with Jaylen as your bona fide number 2. But then there's a big question mark looming over Kemba Walker. So I think that's why John's talking about Tatum taking that leap, and the Celtics need him to, because one, he has the resources to. It's not like there's someone out there grabbing his shots. I mean, the shots are there for him to take. It's really up to him and Brad Stevens to sort of figure this thing out, or Tatum can be aggressive enough to take over when he feels like it. I think he did try to do that at some points throughout this game, but he's just figuring it out. And I do think that that's possible. He could be a top 5 guy. He could make another stride. Bobby, if we asked you this question a year ago, I don't think you would have called this crazy, because you didn't see what he did before the All-Star break last season.
I always saw secondary passing for him. I never saw primary passing.
I never thought he would be in the top 10 conversation at the end of last season, but that's what happened. People had that conversation during the offseason, but it was brought up before the year finished because that was the leap he made. So I think there's another leap there. I just think the whole Jaylen thing it's a big part of this whole equation. Where does Jaylen fit? Is Jaylen going to take that mantle? Because he has to. I think if he doesn't, I think Marcus Smart will do it for him. I think he's that kind of guy. He's that kind of competitor, and it's not more of an ego thing. It's more of a, hey, if you're not going to do it, I will. I'm not afraid to.
Not to change the subject, but John, I just saw in the comments somebody said you guys never criticized Danny Ainge. This roster. Can you imagine saying that? I mean, welcome to the first show, I guess.
No, that was changing the subject. Wow.
I guess you've never watched an episode of this if you say that we've never criticized Danny Ainge. I mean, we spent the last month and a half. Please
refer to the 2 weeks after Gordon Hayward left. I believe we had about 3 shows fighting furiously about Danny Ainge.
Now, it's true. Bobby's never criticized Danny Ainge. That's actually true. But people on this show have. Now, it's too early to criticize yet fully about this roster because we haven't actually had a regular season game yet. But trust me, if criticizing is warranted, it will occur on this show because
this roster
nobody's safe.
This roster
nobody's
in large
safe unless you earn the right to be safe.
I'm glad you bring this up, Jimmy, because this is a good point out of tonight too. John opened it up saying that there were no positives tonight, and such a big reason for that is it feels like there's so many empty projects on the team at this point, down on the bottom tier of the roster. Like you talk about Semi Ojeleye and Carson Edwards and all those missed picks.
4A players.
What I'm worried about.
This roster is an amalgamation of missed picks that have just piled up and piled up and piled up.
Wow. Bobby said
it. That word.
I thought Neesmith's going to save the day, Bobby. I thought Neesmith was the 3-and-D.
Now those are the last guys you should be looking at and criticizing on that. Like tonight, 2 weeks into their NBA career.
Trust me, I'm just looking at what that end of the bench looked like last year. I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about Pritchard and Neesmith.
No, and like they've shown some signs. Like
what I saw.
If we're being serious about the assessment so far against a Philadelphia and against a Brooklyn, who I think you're going to look back on when the season ends and say that was one of the best teams in the league, they're getting some sturdy competition out of the gate right now. And you go against the Philadelphia and get pretty good performances from those 2 rookies. I think you come out of the preseason feeling all right about them.
Yeah, but Bobby, they're waiting for when the season starts, man. That's the thing. Like, if you're the Celtics, you're thinking about it like, man, the Bucks, the Nets, the Nets again.
Fair point.
These Eastern Conference teams have caught up, so it's going to be tough. That record it's not going to look great. I don't know if it's 500, mid-January. I don't know.
That schedule out of the gate is ferocious this year, and these recent seasons have been dictated by the starts. I saw Ryan Bernardoni tweet about that after the game tonight. They're starting off against the Bucks, Nets, Pacers twice, Grizzlies, Pistons twice, Raptors, Wizards.
What's that, 2-7 at the gate? I mean, come on, listen, I'm not just trying to be funny. I'm serious. Like, that's a tough schedule. And not to mention in February, the West Coast trip. Have you seen that trip? How many cities are going to cover in a 2-week span? Is Kemba Walker going to be on that trip? And what kind of condition he's going to be? Because this is early February we're talking about, where we're realistically, or at least the Celtics are praying, February will be the actual, we'll see him in uniform as opposed to another update next month.
Well, what I say, and I said this for a few weeks now, is get prepared for those struggles and don't overreact to them, and just wait for this roster to get healthy. It's tough to overcome a brutal start, which is in the cards, I guess, seeing how they've looked these first 2 days. But if they get by, if they're 500, if they just scrap away at this and just manage, there's light at the end of the tunnel there in Kemba and Tristan Thompson, who, again, substantial part of this team for me. He's going to start eventually, I think. He's going to really change the dynamic of that center position. And who knows? Maybe Romeo Langford charges out of that surgery.
Oh, man, no, stop it. We're not talking sideshow yet. No,
that's the saddest thing. The wing depth here is so bad.
So Hollinger ripped the go ahead, Jimmy.
I want to finish one thing on the schedule because I hate looking too far ahead in the schedules. But one thing we haven't even mentioned, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're pretty much every other day, right, for games?
Yeah.
But when is their practice time?
So the first half of the season, it's more like 2-game series, like baseball style, where they stay in the same city and play a team twice. There's a lot of those in the first half, and the second half is more traveling, where the cities are closer to each other, but it's like 2 games in 5 days, or 2 and 4, and then they travel. It gets
so the whole first half of the season is you're going pretty much every other day, maybe a back-to-back mixed in there. It looked like a few times. Like,
2 and 3. Yeah.
You don't have 2-3 days off in a row where you can like work on things and like get your guys back on the same page. Like, it's kind of just like shotgun start here and like hold your breath and hope that these pieces kind of fall into place. And it just doesn't know. It's hard when your 2 best players are 22, 23 years old, as opposed to like the Nets. We'll use them as an example because we just played them. Their 2 best players are long-term vets, all-star, perennial all-stars, Hall of Fame players. So it's like I think it's a lot easier for guys to sort of fall in line behind those 2 types of players, and you've got another veteran like DeAndre Jordan. These guys know what it takes to win, and I think guys can sort of fall in line behind them. Whereas like on the Celtics, you've got Kemba Walker kind of watching from the sidelines. You lost Gordon Hayward. You're kind of leaning on Marcus Smart and kind of some of the young guys to lead the way here. And I don't know if that's another uphill battle for this team.
The ramp up's going to be substantial, and Stevens has said it. He's kind of he has mellowed those expectations for the first 2 months. So if you listen to the coach, they're not quite ready to go.
Let him in.
This is the kind of result you end up with here when you're, not quite approaching that full scale mark. So I'd be interested. I'm actually probably going to ask Brad next time on a presser, like, when do you expect to hit full speed? Is it a month? Is it a month and a half? Is it 2 months? Because they are so early in this process. Like tonight looked like they just stepped on the court and it was day 1 of training camp and they rolled the balls out there and did the best they could. That was the kind of game they had tonight. Yeah. And, when you're injured as they are, when you're as young as they are, what do? Do you look toward Danny Ainge? Do you look toward the training staff? I don't like. It's just they're in a bad spot right now, roster wise, and it's a lot of the stuff we talked about over the offseason. It's some bad luck, in Tristan Thompson's case. So it's going to be tough here. Now it is preseason. How many guys just actually start throttling when we get into these early games? I guess we're going to actually have to see a real game first to kind of judge this team for real. But the early returns aren't great.
Nope.